Hello, I'm Jamon Jordan, official historian for the city of Detroit. And this is Black History Month. I want to welcome you to some wonderful programming called Undefeated, a look at Black history in the city of Detroit through the lens of dance, music, architecture, spoken word, and other genres. You can view some wonderful video, which will also be available on Channel 22 and at DetroitArtsandCulture.com. Please enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Riley, Director of Arts and Culture for the City of Detroit, and welcome to today's program, which is on one of my favorite creative arts, architecture. As I was telling our guest earlier, I was very interested in being an architect when I was younger, but it was a bad idea. So I'm glad that so many people are happy that I went another way. I was reading this story on the legacy of Black architects in Detroit, written by Matthew Piper of Curved Detroit. And the history and things you may not know could take your breath away. And I want to share just a little bit with you. Drive up Linwood Street, just north of Interstate 94 in Detroit's Northwest Goldberg neighborhood, and you'll find a ziggurat from the future occupying nearly an entire block. It is a long, low-slung, and perfectly symmetrical building with brick flanks to the east and west and sloping expanses of bluish-gray zinc to the north and south. This is the former McMichael Middle School, and it was built in 1981 and is now the Detroit Police Training Academy. It is amazing to see, and it was designed by none other than African-American architects Howard Sims and Harold Varner. You're going to hear a lot about these two gentlemen today. And across town in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood, if you follow Kitchener Street from Jefferson Avenue toward the Detroit River, you'll find the striking home that Roger Marjoram designed for himself in the early 2000s. The extravagant postmodern home is black, white, and crimson painted wood, and I want it. What unites these two buildings and a few dozen others across the city is not just the futurism of their forms, but the fact that they were designed by Black architects. So I'd like to welcome my very special, very expert guest today to talk about the history, the present, and the future of Black architecture in Detroit. So please welcome Karen Burton, Sandra Little, and the one and only Rainey Hamilton, so that we can talk a little bit about what has happened before and a whole lot about what should be happening for Black architects now. I do want to say, and I don't know if Karen will tell you this, but she probably will, it's a small number. This is a very exclusive club of about 113,000 architects licensed in the United States. Only 2% are African American. So welcome, 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 you guys. How are you?
Good, Rochelle. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I want our guests, and I'm glad that we have guests coming in from Facebook Live and also here on Zoom with us to learn a little bit more about who you are. So if you could take a second to tell us the most important thing about you, I'd appreciate it. Rainey, why don't you start, although we know.
Sure, I'll go first. Thanks, Rochelle, and good morning. Thank you for having me. Hamilton Anderson is my firm. This is our 28th year of business. I started in my home in 1994, and we continue to grow and to do well in Detroit. It's been an honor to practice here. It's been a dream come true. So 28 years of practice. Hamilton Anderson is a team right now of about 45 professionals of architects, landscape architects, interior designers, and planners. And we're helping to rebuild the city, one house, one block, one neighborhood at a time.
I love that. And then Karen and Sandra, you both work together on a project, but if you'll start one at a time, Sandra, you first.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Sandra Little. I am a architect and principal at Quinn Evans Architects in Detroit, Michigan. I am also the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Quinn Evans. And like Rochelle said, Karen and I work together where I'm a co-founder of Noir Design Partie, and that is our project that documents the work of African-American architects. And I'm also on the board, on the national board for the National Organization of Minority Architects, NOMA. And I am the regional, Midwest Regional Vice President, currently serving under that role. So definitely trying to advocate, uplift, and keep the story of African American architects forefront to every conversation that I'm in, and help, like I said, Rainey said, to rebuild the city and the state along the way.
Thank you. And Karen?
Yes, thank you so much for having us, Rochelle. My name is Karen Burton. For over 20 years, I was an architectural designer, got to work on a lot of great projects here in the city of Detroit, Metro Detroit. In Flint, I got to work with Rainey at his firm and Sandra at her firm, and with other firms here in the city. But in 2008, during the last recession, my career took a little turn and I started doing consulting for architects and engineers. And then my husband and I opened a co-working space here in downtown Detroit called Space Lab Detroit, where a lot of our focus is on the built environment profession. So many of our members are in the built environment. I am on the board of Urban Land Institute and NOMA Detroit. So I am happy to be here and always happy to talk about the contributions that Black architects have made and are making here in the city.
Thank you so much. I can tell you, I've heard rave reviews about the presentation that you make, particularly with all of the work that you and Sandra are doing to make sure that we not only chart this history, but preserve something that can inspire future architects. My sister's a landscape architect, which I'm very proud of. And so what I'd like to do now, Karen, is just give you the screen so that you can present some of that presentation for our future architects, would-be architects, or just people who like buildings who are in the audience.
All right, I'm going to take over here. Let's see. Hopefully it'll be a smooth transition.
Hey, it's coming.
Well, if it's not, we just blame COVID for everything.
Right.
All right, that is not what I wanted to do. Sorry, give me just a moment.
That's okay.
All right, now, here we are.
Okay.
All right, Sandra and I are going to be presenting together. And for some reason, it wants to skip to the next one. Let's see. So, sorry about that. As Sandra said, I'll let Sandra tell you the meaning of the Noir Design Party name.
Okay. Well, like we were talking about before, Rochelle, I had French class in high school as well, and we knew the French roots of Detroit. So we basically tried to name the project in that nature. So noir is black in French, and design, we kept that normally, but partie is actually French for a concept. And it's very much used in the architectural world when we're presenting our designs to start out a project. We've come up with this design concept and they call it a design partie. So that's kind of where the name came from. So a little bit of Detroit roots and our architectural roots as well.
All right. So Noir Design Party is a 2016 Knights Arts Challenge winning project, and we're keeping it going. And Sandra and I often heard people say, we don't know any Black architects in Detroit. And we came back and said, we know lots of them and lots of architectural designers. So we hear a lot about Albert Kahn and Yamasaki and Charles and Ray Eames and Elil and Eero Saarinen, but Black architects have made huge contributions to the city of Detroit and in Michigan, and we want to show that through exhibits, videos, books, and making sure that our Black architects have their Wikipedia pages as well. Sandra.
Okay, yeah, so that kind of led us down our path, like I said, making sure that this information is available. So we're going to start out in going back in history in 1969. This is a Michigan Challenger article that was actually written by one of our trailblazer architects, Nathan Johnson. This was kind of like a state of the state for Black professions during the 1969. And he wrote an article on architects and where the numbers were. So back in 1969, there were 30,000 in the US. And out of that 30,000, there was only 690 African-American architects. And in Michigan, so because our focus is in Michigan, we drilled the numbers down more. So it's only 2,000, roughly a little over 2,000 in Michigan, but there were only 14 licensed African-American architects in the 1969 time frame. And 0 of those were women. So no Black women licensed architects during that time frame. So just to see the numbers and our first visit with Mr. Johnson to find this information out was just mind-blowing, right? So it helped us continue to chart our path. So you can go on, Karen.
So this is our timeline for architecture firms and Black architects getting their start. And Sandra has kind of titled this the 100-year head start. Smith, Hinchman and Grills, which is now Smith Group, was founded here in Detroit in 1853. So Smith, Hinchman and Grills and another firm named Luckett and Farley were founded at the same year. Luckett and Farley were in Kentucky, but they were founded in 1853. The first Black-owned firm was not founded until 1905. McKissick and McKissick was founded in Tennessee. And then if we move to 1921, the first Black member of the American Institute of Architects was Paul R. Williams. And we've been hearing a lot about him lately. He was called the architect to the stars. And he did a lot of work in Los Angeles, but in other cities as well. A lot of recognizable work in the city and a lot of homes for movie stars in Los Angeles too. In 1939, Donald White became the first licensed architect in Michigan, first Black licensed architect in Michigan. He was also the first Black licensed architect in Alabama. And he was the first Black graduate of the University of Michigan's College of Architecture. We're going to talk a little bit more about him shortly. Robert Madison in 1954 established his firm in Ohio, Black architect, but he has ties here to Michigan. Sharon Madison, owner of the Madison Building on Washington Boulevard, is his niece. He and his brothers had an architecture and engineering firm. Mr. Madison also did some work here in Detroit, and he has been featured in the press quite a bit lately. He is in his 90s. In 1954 also, Norma Sklarek became the first Black female member of the American Institute of Architects. For a long time, we thought she was the first Black woman architect to be licensed, but there are a couple that were before her, but she is the first Black AIA member. In 1956, Nathan Johnson, who you'll hear quite a bit about today, established his firm here in Michigan. 1964, Howard Sims started his firm in Ann Arbor, and then he got a partner, Harold Varner, and they started their firm here in Detroit. Quite a prolific firm and lots of recognizable buildings, a couple of which you will see today. In 1968, Whitney Young gave a speech at the AIA convention here, not here in Detroit, I'm sorry, that was later. But it really pushed architects to look at social issues and to look at diversity and equity in the profession. In 1971, NOMA was founded, National Organization of Minority Architects, and that was, their first meetings were at an American Institute of Architects convention that was here in Detroit. So a lot of the members got together here in Detroit, and out of that was founded our Minority Architects organization. In 1994, Rainey Hamilton established his firm, Hamilton Anderson Associates. And in 2008, Sandra established her firm, Centric Design Studio, with her partner, Damon Thomas. And we'll talk a little bit later about the significance of it being sold 10 years later in 2018. And then we have a timeline here of our 4 generations of trailblazers that we look at in Michigan. beginning in the 1930s and 1940s through the late 1960s is our first generation, all the way to generation number 4, which is practicing now, and we're starting a generation 5 of Black architects working in Detroit and in Michigan.
So we've kind of, usually in our presentations, we have a longer version of this where we kind of talk more into each of the architects, but we put them in the groups to show you how we broken up the generation. So this is that first generation, our Trailblazer generation. This is a nice photo with them here, actually looking to collaborate on a project in Pontiac that did not come through, but this is from the Michigan Chronicle back in 1968. So it's Varner is to the left, Griffin is next to him, Nathan Johnson's right to the center of the picture, Quentin Garland is next in line to the left, and then the farthest to the to the right is Howard Sims. So we've been putting them into this group and really trying to dig into this Trailblazer generation. This generation, actually, I have to say, with the passing of a lot of the Trailblazers, really put fire under us to start to get this history and get it recorded. So that we won't lose all of these stories and all of this information. So this was the thing that really pushed us. Out of this generation, there's only one living Trailblazer, and that's Nathan Johnson. And he is roughly like 96 years old, still living in Detroit. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later. So you can go to the next slide, Karen.
So our next generation, generation 2, you can see a list of last names here on the left. In the picture, the tallest person here to the left is Mark English. Mark established his firm here in Detroit in 1976. He graduated from the University of Michigan, could not find a job in an architecture firm, so he started his own, established it on the Avenue of Fashion on Livernois, and did a lot of work in that area and around the city of Detroit. He's done a lot of work with Detroit Public Schools as well, and he's still practicing today. So you can see a list over here on the left, including Barbara McGee, who was the second Black female architect in Detroit and in Michigan. Go ahead, Sandra.
So this is our third generation. Actually, this is the generation that had a large number of firm owners and that was practicing upon my graduation from college. So when I came out of college at Lawrence Technological University, literally my resumes were being submitted to a number of architects that are on this list. So I ended up working for Emmett Haygood, who had EBH Design here in the city for a number of years. This picture that's centered here actually has various architects and some contractors in this photo, but a lot of the Black architects that were practicing this time are in this photo. Rainey is in this photo. He could probably tell more stories about this than I could, but this was, like I said, a very important generation that was practicing during the 80s, 90s, and really working under the Coleman Young administration and actually doing a lot of work in the city of Detroit at that time. So what we have too on this list to clarify are architects that are licensed and to practice in the state of Michigan. There are a number of other individuals we're tracking as well, called designers, that are non-licensed professionals that work in firms, that are out in the communities, but we've been able to track this information for licensed architects through the state of Michigan. So.
And then our generation 4, the picture you see here was when we hosted the National Organization of Minority Architects Conference in 2012. We'll let you know a little bit later that we are hosting again this year. Hopefully we can meet in person, but it'll be the 50th homecoming. So a lot of the people in this picture are in the 4th generation of architects, and Russell Baltimore, who currently is with the the planning department with the city of Detroit. I don't think he's in this picture, but he's listed here. Kimberly Dokes, Kenneth Crutcher, a lot of people who are currently doing quite a bit of work here in the city. Sandra Little, and we should have Brian Cook on this list as well. So quite a few people. Norris is in Grand Rapids area. So we are also tracking people outside of the city of Detroit. All right, so this is Donald White. Mr. White was, again, the first Black architect to be licensed in the state of Michigan, also in Alabama. In addition to getting his Bachelor of Science degree in Architectural Engineering, he got his Master's of Architecture, and he also got a degree in Civil Engineering. Sandra and I talked a little bit about that, and sometimes we wonder, maybe he could not find a white civil engineering firm that he could work with on his project, so he decided he was going to go ahead and be his own engineer as well. He had his own practice, and then he started a firm with the second Black architect in Michigan, Francis Griffin. They both went to Liberia and did some work for the US government in Liberia, some educational designs there. And he also worked for Nathan Johnson. So Mr. White was the third Black licensed architect, or third Black member of the American Institute of Architects in the country. Very prominent in Michigan and Detroit. He was on the board for the American Institute of Architects here in Detroit as well. As I mentioned, he was also a civil engineer. This is a church that he and Francis Griffin's firm designed. It is on 25th Street in Detroit. It used to be called Ajalon Baptist Church. That's what it was when they designed it. It is now the Right Way Church, and is still standing today. Architects who were licensed back in the 30s and 40s, sometimes it's very difficult to find their work still standing in the city. So we're happy that we were able to find this project. But Donald White, as I mentioned, was a civil engineer. He was also the designer of the Tappan Zee Bridge in Detroit. So he was born in Canada, grew up in Chicago area, went to school in Michigan, practiced in Michigan for a long time, and then he moved to New York State, where his in-laws lived. He worked for the state of New York and was one of the chief designers for this bridge that was imploded a couple years ago. There's a new bridge there now, but it stood for over 50 years. And this is Donald White, first Black architect in Detroit, and Francis Griffin, the second Black architect in Detroit, both the first and second Black graduates of University of Michigan School of Architecture as well.
Okay, this is a mid-century modern architectural style building. It's an office building for a doctor in Inkster, Michigan. And as a child, I went to this doctor's office because this was my mom's doctor. And I remember standing, looking in this black and white photo to the right here, looking out this window, thinking, I've never saw anything like this before around here. Where, how did this building get here? Just being very fascinated by the view and the way it framed the street. So upon our research, I was then able to find out, and our first visit with Mr. Nathan Johnson, one of our trailblazer architects, that he designed this building. As we were flipping through his portfolio and that Michigan Challenger article that I showed you, I see these pictures and I'm like, oh my goodness, you designed Dr. Franklin's office. So it was just like a full 360 for me. Super excited. But definitely pulled a lot of things out of this building that I see throughout Nathan's work. That window that's there at the corner to the left, coming together at a corner that has no structure in it is a characteristic style of Mr. Johnson's that he carries out in other church designs and buildings throughout the city of Detroit. So it just felt just great to sit there and talk to him. But the first time we met him, I think he was like 91.
91 or 92, yeah.
Yeah, and he just full of stories and conversation. We had a delight, seeing his portfolio and hearing about his background personally from him. It was quite to me, it's quite a blessing. Should go to the next slide, Karen.
Yeah, and
I was trying to hold my questions until the end, but I am so in love with this building, and I wanted to ask whether Mr. Johnson had other buildings around Detroit or around the state. Is there anything else?
Yes. So like that's this same window is in Stanley Mania's Cafe, which just sold. It was in Cranes yesterday.
Mm-hmm. It's on Baltimore.
Yep, on Baltimore Street, and that same window is in the building. That building is like a Googie style building, but he uses this in like churches, the Church of Resurrection in Ecorse, Michigan, and the same window design comes up. But I really like it in this office building, how it is very intimate with the corner in this neighborhood right here in Inkster. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So this is Karen and I standing with Mr. Johnson when he won in was it 2018? The AIA AIA Detroit Gold Medal Award. So with the work that Karen and I were doing and the presentations that we were doing, it really highlighted Mr. Johnson, and AIA approached us like, I'm so excited. I had never heard of the work that he's doing, and I didn't know about all of his work. You know, we would love to have him nominated for, the AIA Detroit Gold Medal Award, which is the highest award honor you can get within the American Institute of Architects. So it was just a joy to see him come out to this event. Invited all of his Kappa brothers with him. They were there with him that day. All of the members of NOMA were there, supported him, and he was so excited to get the gold medal that day. I mean, just to reward an architect that pretty much has a building in each of Detroit's district areas is just well worth it, and we're glad that the efforts have led to this.
Yeah, and we're glad that he received it and was there to get it himself, but the award came almost 25 years after he closed his firm. So this work that we're doing, we feel is so important for our Black architects to get the recognition they deserve here in the city.
That's true.
And nationally.
Now here's another Nathan Johnson building that's in Greektown. So this is an addition to Second Baptist, and we know Second Baptist is like where the Underground Railroad tours and everything are, but this addition this era was like the sweet spot for Nathan Johnson. His mid-century modern work was spot on. This is a brutalist style building built in 1968, and it's actually on the Michigan Modern driving tour that they have, but we're trying to get it recognized even more. So I just recently wrote a letter of support to help get this addition on the National Historic Register. So the original building, the original church is on the National Historic Register, but not this addition portion. So they actually, it would help make sure, you keep this part of the church intact and everything. So very important to the efforts moving forward with the church. So he also up in the right corner is Bethel AME. This is another mid-century modern design. So this is on Warren and 75. We actually had a beautiful tour event there pre-pandemic, and we went through the church, and Mr. Johnson was there. We did a lecture on all of his work, including all of his churches that fit into this era of mid-century modern. This design actually has a nice kind of Japanese influence, and the rendering that's there that was actually just submitted to the National Smithsonian for the National African American Museum for their rendering the visible submission. So it's made it to the second round, and hopefully this becomes part of their collection, his work. So like I said, whatever we can do to uplift and get the work out there and the information out there on these Black architects, that's what we've been doing with our project.
Nathan Johnson was also the chief architect for the People Mover stations. So he didn't just keep all of the work for himself. He shared the work with other Black architects in the city. So all of the People Mover stations were designed by Black architecture firms in the city of Detroit. This is Roger Marjoram. We mentioned him earlier. Rochelle showed the 45-degree house that's in Detroit down by the river. He designed that house for his wife, and every corner has 45 degrees. And in 2012, the National Organization of Minority Architects Detroit chapter gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award. Sandra spent quite a bit of time with him. He wouldn't just let us give him an award and move on. He decided that we needed to spend an entire year with him and learn about his work. So he's done work in Detroit. He started out in Chicago working for SOM architecture firm, and he designed some mid-century modern homes there as well. This was one of his favorite projects, though. It was a pavilion that was near the Ambassador Bridge. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, and like Rochelle mentioned earlier, this is Howard Sims and Harold Varner. Pretty much during the time, like I said, when I came out of school, this was the largest African-American ran architecture firm in the city, and they have worked throughout the city. This is Helen DeRoy, the apartments that's on Wayne State campus. Was recently demolished just because of the it was actually technical failures with the product that was used on this project. This is actually right in the heart of an area that has a lot of African-American design projects that are on Wayne State's campus. Like in the background, there is a dormitory that Hamilton Anderson worked on, Rainey's firm, and directly across the street. So this is one of our tour stops that we have when we have bus tours. We stop here, get out, and walk to several buildings that are on Wayne State's campus that are designed by African-American architects that a lot of people don't know. The undergraduate library is right down the mall there. And like I said, Hamilton Anderson has done a number of projects on the campus.
So Sims, Varner and Associates was also the architect for the Museum of African American History, the current building, as well as the second building that is right behind now, owned by College for Creative Studies. There are lots of stories about the design of this building and why it's shaped the way it is, why the rotunda is the way it is, all of the African-inspired details there. We're running a little short on time, so come out to our next lecture and we'll probably give you a few more details on that. Sims Varner was also the architect for the North Edition of Cobo Center, now TCF Center, that was done in the 1980s, and also the architects for the new renovation. So whenever you go into Cobo, you're seeing work by Sims Varner and now the current architect SDG Associates, which is the latest iteration of the firm. There was also another Black architect, Harold Ward, who worked on the original Cobo Hall project, Black architect. Dr. James Chafers, we thought it was important to include him. He is a professor emeritus at the University of Michigan, Taubman College of Architecture. He is the first architect ever to earn a doctorate of architecture in the United States, and he did that in 1971. Not just first Black architect, but first architect ever. And
then we said you'll learn more about Rainey Hamilton in our talk this following year. But Karen and I both work for Hamilton Anderson Associates. So this is where we actually met. So it's I look at Hamilton Anderson during the time that we were coming up as architects as being that next incubator, because Griffin and White's firm was an incubator to all of the Black architects early on because they couldn't get jobs in different firms at the time, but Hamilton Anderson actually also acted as an incubator here in Detroit for the next generation as well. Brought us all under the wing, and we actually chartered the NOMA Detroit chapter during the time of a lot of us working here. So the photo here has a rendering from tons of work that Hamilton Anderson is doing in the city, the Brush Park area. And this is Rainey in the photo to the right. You can go to the next one, Karen. And Hamilton Anderson is, to my knowledge, the only Black architecture firm that is going to be like Arc of Record for a skyscraper in Detroit. So the Hudson block is being renovated now, and this is a project that Hamilton Anderson is working on conjointly with Shop Architects. So you see the construction and the cranes up now. This is in the works. So this, think about the role of Black architects just growing when you see this project come up in the city. Very proud of this effort.
And then last year, I think it was year before last, Rochelle moderated a panel for us on Black women architects in Detroit and in Michigan. Here are some of the women here in the picture that were featured on the 2 panels that we had. And then Black women make up only 0.3% of the licensed architecture population. So there are 13 or 14 currently licensed in Michigan. The first 2, we talked about Donald White being the first licensed Black architect in the 1930s. It wasn't until 50 years later that Linda Haith became the first Black woman to be licensed in the state of Michigan, and then Barbara McGee was second. So they're first and second here on these pictures on the right. They were within 4 months of each other of becoming licensed. So at the time that Sandra and I were in college, there were either no Black women licensed architects or they were just becoming licensed at that time. Also in this picture is Kimberly Dowdell from Detroit. She is the recent past president of National Organization of Minority Architects, the national organization, and she's currently working in Chicago. And then Sandra, you want to talk about the significance of Centric Design Studio?
Okay. So I did mention the number of hats that I've worn. So one of them was a firm owner for 10 years. So after I left Hamilton Anderson and Associates, my business partner and I, Damon Thomas, started our own design firm, Centric Design Studio, and worked on a number of projects throughout the city. One of them is the space that Karen is sitting in now. So it is her co-working space, which is Space Labs Detroit. Is a co-working space centered on the AEC industry. So this hub for architects and for contractors and real estate agents is bustling every day. But we started to do a number of projects and teaming with Quinn Evans Architects. And that led to our firm being acquired by Quinn Evans and bought out. So my business partner and I are currently now at Quinn Evans Architects, and our shareholders within that company, and actually the 2 of us plus one other person are running the Detroit office at Woodward and Willis. So this is it's significant because I've heard of joint ventures in Michigan between minority architects and majority firms, but I had never heard of a minority firm being bought by a majority firm. So we feel like we made history here. It's been quite a growing experience, and actually taking things that I was doing in my practice, taking those to Quinn Evans, like bringing high school students into the office to get real life experience and exposure to architecture. So it's definitely something that's given me a larger platform, and definitely wanted to mention it here.
And then there are lots of other Black architects doing things nationally. Top left is Dr. Craig Wilkins, who won a National Design Award recently. He is a lecturer at University of Michigan and also author of The Aesthetics of Equity. Writes a lot about architecture and equity. We see Rainey in the Metro Times. Tiffany Brown and her 400 Forward project, bringing more Black girls into architecture. And then the hip hop architect, Michael Ford, who lectures quite a bit and has his hip hop architecture camps. As I mentioned, NOMA is having its 50th homecoming conference here this year in 2021 in October. There is a fantastic video out there if you want to take a look at it. Getting people interested in the conference. The poetry is done by Jessica Care Moore. Over here in the top right is our project pipeline that NOMA Detroit does to get students interested in architecture and designing actual architecture projects. And this is some of the members of National Organization of Minority Architects.
So we're gonna close out our presentation with the numbers today. So you saw the numbers when we started out in 1969, but the numbers today are 100,000 licensed architects. We're still at the 2% nationally with 2,000 African-American licensed architects throughout the US. And there's 2,500 licensed architects in Michigan, but only 73 of those are African-American architects. So our project pipeline and different efforts like that and getting students exposure within firms has been our focus with our practices and with the National Organization of Minority Architects to help increase these numbers. Small, but impactful, because you will see, like I said, more work that you were exposed to today that African-American architects have done in the city.
You can find us at noirdesignparty.com and on social media. And if you would like to contribute to our Black History Month fundraiser, you can find that online as well. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope we haven't gone over too much. Stop the share. Thank you. Thank you.
My God. Well, first of all, I want to thank Noir Design Party for this work, because this is God's work. It's what we need to do in every genre. We were talking a little bit in the chat. We were paying attention, but I was answering Vic's question about, doing documentaries and making sure that we're preserving this archival. And I want to do that for Black theater, Black dance, and Black architecture. So we'll be talking. But I want to get to our conversation, because Rainey, oh my God, you are now the godfather of this new generation, now that we have gone through the history. So let's bring us back up to the present. Is everybody unmuted so we can jump right in? I want to make sure now I'm up. There I am. Where's Rainey? I'm looking. There's the gallery view. Oh, now I can see everyone. So I can, we have lots of friends in the audience. I see Monique, and there's Mark Farlow and Michelle McKinney. And so
I think Rainey had to reconnect a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, while he's oh, there he is. Hi, Rainey.
Back.
So what I was saying was, and first of all, everybody just please take a minute and unmute yourselves and applaud Noir Design Party.
Good job.
That is amazing. And you were kind enough, thank you. They were kind enough to give us the shorter version today of just an amazing amount and years of work that we do want to make sure this is some of the most important archival that can happen, which is why I included architecture in this year-long celebration of our arts and culture, because architecture is a huge part of our culture. So I want to start our conversation with the godfather of the current generation, and that's Rainey Hamilton, to talk a little bit about what the landscape is like now for Black architects, and mostly in Detroit, because we're talking about what we need to do here.
Right. Well, Rochelle, it really hasn't changed a whole lot from the numbers that Sandra and Karen presented. It's still 2%. We still struggle to find architects of color as we've grown our practice. So it's still a challenge. We try to do what we can by going into the elementary schools, middle schools, and we reach out to the historically Black colleges to look for talent. But it's very, very challenging in today's market to find architects of color. It's just challenging. We've had issues trying to grow our practice with finding Black professionals. I think there have been gains in finding women professionals, but it's still a challenge overall.
Well, I can tell you, in my former life as a columnist, which most people know, I would write about the miseducation of our children and how not only do we not teach about the excellence of African American contributions, but we don't even teach about this. So I don't know that a lot of these young kids know about Mr. Johnson and know about these buildings that, this is something you can grow up to do. And that's something else I want to change. If we do a documentary, I want it to be required viewing, in fifth grade classes so that kids have some idea of what that career is. But talk to me a little bit about, and this is for all three of you, about what it's like for that small percentage of architects who are working. Is everybody working? Is it something that is doable and lucrative and you're able to do it?
I could start off. It is architecture follows the economy is one thing too that I think young people coming out of college kind of get caught up in. And I have seen in the past that when the economy dips, that sometimes that sacrifice of who gets laid off is been that African American or that Black architect that gets laid off. And I think that's kind of discouraging as well. So we need to kind of work on wraparound services to make sure that they make it through the profession and get up in the ranks and get more experience. But it is it is good. When it's good, it's good. And that's how it is in architecture. Everybody's happy and busy working and and that's the good times. But when the recessions hit, we have to still nurture those young professionals coming through to make sure that they're there for the future. Like with this last effort that happened during the pandemic, our firm, we made sure that we did not stop our summer interns this summer because we do not want to lose another gap of interns to the profession. We have a gap in the profession in general at a certain kind of experience level because with the last recession, a lot of people left the field. They went to do other related careers. They went into construction side. So we're making sure that we kind of catch those gaps.
Well, I know you mentioned wraparound services. So Karen, I want to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like for those downtimes. What other things are architects doing when the economy is slowing the need for design?
So I taught architectural design for a while, and I would tell my students, in addition to architecture, consider getting a degree in business or engineering or interior design or something else that works well with architecture. But you want to build up your portfolio and be able to offer other services, not only to your own clients, but be able to offer something different and unique to an employer. So that's what those other services can look like. My career path was a little different. I did not get licensed as an architect. So I looked at careers like facilities management and corporate architecture and architecture at a hospital or a healthcare corporation, something like that, where we can look at our skills a little differently.
Now, I used to live in Dallas for a while, and we had this saying, if you toss a brick, a building would pop up because there was so much construction. And people are kind of feeling that way about Detroit with all the construction. Are Black architects involved in all of this construction that is happening or was happening, right up until people had to slow down because of the pandemic?
I thought that was the perfect key for Rainey, and then he kind of went out.
Everybody's looking at you, Rainey, for that question.
Yeah, I think he's having some connection.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for him to come back. But are you all aware of whether there's equity and parity in taking care of being involved in some of the work that's happening now?
I think there still needs to be some work done in those areas. It's still tough for a firm owner. So one of the trends that I've heard of. So I actually watched the MLK lecture at Southern California this past a couple weeks ago with Melvin Mitchell. And Melvin Mitchell wrote a book years ago called The Crisis of the African American Architect. And his, we noticed it here, and Rainey and I have had this talk, and actually I talked to Rainey before I sold my firm, and it was like, we noticed that the numbers of firm owners or African American firm owners are starting to get lower. That whole generation of when I came out of college that was practicing that we talked about in generations 2 and 3 are retiring, are getting older, and it's like succession planning has not, from an African American architect standpoint, is not forefront to some of the business side of things that we kind of need to get up on. And I just say we're learning a lot in our 50 years, right? It's only been 50 years that architects have been doing this, so this is our first generational change, and I think we're trying to figure that out. But it also, in that lecture, Mr. Mitchell said across the country, those numbers of minority firms are getting smaller. So that's, I think, something that we're starting to look at on a national level with the National Organization of Minority Architects to kind of study what is happening to cause that. And it is tough. So as a firm owner myself, it was hard to get those larger projects to help grow your company, somebody to give you a chance to prove yourself to do that work. When you only have a firm of like 10 people, so then you have to team up with majority firms to get the larger work. So you're getting a share of the work, and it takes a while to build an architectural portfolio. It takes a while for a building to come to life. So it just, we need to definitely work on the legacy piece, because all of that portfolio work that it takes to build and get an architectural portfolio, we need to learn how to pass that to the next generation so they continue it on. So,
well, I always say that every arena of judgment is like the Oscars. It's a popularity contest where somebody declares that somebody's great, which is why we talk about Mies van der Rohe and 19 other folks, but we're not talking about some of these other people. Who are some of the people, and you're doing such great work with this, but who are some of the people who are working now who we need to really be rallying around and letting people know that they are as fantastic as any other person whose name continues to get thrown up?
I just scrolled through who's on this webinar right now, and I see Kenneth Crutcher, who I got to share an office with some 20 years ago, doing great work around Detroit. Roland Day is also on here, who I also worked with. We worked on the CompuWare headquarters with Rossetti Architects and Greektown Casino. As I mentioned,
Isaac Norris is on here.
Isaac Norris is on here as well. He's over in Grand Rapids doing great things. Lincoln Calhoun, who's a principal with SDG, which used to be Sims Barner. So, one of the first quotes I said was, people told us that they did not know of any Black architects. We are in a city that is 80% African American. And we have a good number of people practicing architecture and architectural design. If you don't know any, you're not looking hard enough.
And Mark also mentioned Zachary Verhulst, Carl Bolifer, and Marcus King in the chat. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this as well. In addition to raising up musicians and designers and, painters and all of those folks, we need to raise up our architects, whether we're promoting what they're doing. I want to send out a social media blast when somebody is starting a new building or when somebody has finished a building. And when somebody does something that looks like Nathan Johnson's building, I want to have a house with that right in my living room. I know that's not typically what you think is commercial stuff, but I love that design.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things we want to do. But you're right, Karen, we cannot say we don't know. It's a part of our job to make sure people know.
Exactly. Exactly.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about NOMA, because again, is Rainey back? Nope, not yet. Okay.
Sure.
I wanted to ask a little bit about NOMA and how people can get involved. When you have such a small group, I'm a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, which started, with a few folks in a room in a hotel in Washington in 1975. So when you've got that small a cadre of people, do you all know each other? Is there a way for us to make sure we lift up the work of NOMA? Talk a little bit about that, because somebody did put the national video for the 50th anniversary conference in the chat too. And that's the kind of thing we can show people and say, look, don't say you don't know.
Yeah, so in that video is actually featured some of the African-American projects throughout the city. It's a mixture of different projects, but it's definitely minority focused, like some of Yamasaki stuff is in there. And then Jessica Moore Jessica Care Moore is the poet that did the voiceover for that video. Amazing. He took the play on words with African American culture and used it throughout the video, and it's just she did a remarkable job.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. Make sure to share that.
yeah,
NomaDetroit.org. I put it in the chat. We meet regularly, so feel free to look at the website or watch for the next meeting date and get involved. Sarah Timberlake is on the board. She's on this call, on this webinar as well.
Well, while we have such great folks on the webinar, I want to bring them into this conversation because even if it's not Q&A and they just want to chat, I want to make sure that we have some of that interaction, which is why we did it this way and I can see everybody. So if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat or you can, let me see if we have the option to raise your hand. You can actually, why don't you just put it in the chat and say, I have a question, because I see applause and I see, oh, you can raise your hand. It's at the bottom. So you can raise your hand and we'll try to go to you. You can just put it in the chat that I want to ask or say something. But I want to bring in some of these great folks who are doing this great work. George Nanamdi, we're glad you're here. He said he loved the presentation. I do want to ask, for those of us who will never be architects, but love architects, how is it that we can help guide people to what you do? Is there some website that says, here are amazing folks, or how does that work for promotion purposes, or to let people, is there a gallery, a hall of fame of these are the folks, or what you just did with the new generation of architects so people know who they are? Is there a website? Does NOMA have a website that lists, these are the folks working now?
NOMA does have on its page, NOMA Detroit does have on its, one of its pages, some of the architects that you can contact if you need work done. So that is there. Noir Design Party also has videos, and we do some short narratives of architects that are working. You can go back through our Facebook page and our Instagram, and there's some information on architects past and present.
Yeah, we have a website, a YouTube page, Instagram page that we're starting to feature more architects' work. But we got the website up this summer, got it launched actually through the Digital Detroit grant program, helped us get across the finish line of finishing that finishing that website. But yeah, more videos will be uploaded to our YouTube page. We have like some old recorded panel discussions we've done at University of Detroit Mercy. We recently just put up one that we did when we first started out at Ann Arbor Public Library to kind of give a little bit more exposure. So you'll start to see more videos come. That's actually what our fundraiser is for this month, for Black History Month. We're raising for video editing and to finish up those videos and get them up and posted. So I'll put that link in the chat, but you'll start to see more and more information on minority architects. And then National NOMA has a website as well. I'll put that in the chat, where we're currently now featuring the 12 founders who founded NOMA National on a monthly basis, building all the way up to our 50th anniversary this year. So it's a lot of information out there, and we'll put some resources in the chat.
Thank you so much. And the Godfather is back, so I want us to get back to Rainey. While you were gone, Rainey, we were just talking a little bit about how to make sure that we raise the profile of the architects who are working. And they talked about how they are listed on some websites. But I want to hear from you again about sort of the landscape now and what we should be doing to make it better, not just for the architects who are working, but the architects who should be working, particularly in Detroit.
I think, and sorry, Rochelle, my internet just totally died.
Oh,
so glad to be back. Yeah, I think we have to continue building on what Sandra and Karen are doing and making sure that architects that are practicing continue to get recognition for the work that they're doing. So to celebrate, I think what you're doing with this program and getting us exposure, I think we have to continue to build on that and work with our city leaders and local leaders and make sure that, the word gets out. It should not be a situation where someone's looking to work with an African-American architect and they come up with no names. So I think we have to continue to broadcast that and to celebrate architecture by Black architects all year long, and just get the word out.
And I saw a very good idea from Vic in the chat where he was talking about gaining the attention of young folks with a movie like Hidden Figures that might bring in droves of new Black architects. He wants me to put on my screenwriting hat now, because I'll tell you, when you've got somebody who is the first person to get, was it a doctorate? The first
Yes.
person doctorate,
Yes.
not the first Black person, but the first person to get a
First
doctorate. And then you've got all of these great stories about all of this. I mean, these are folks who are overly qualified, thrice qualified, who did these amazing things in years when people didn't even know that Black folks were architects. So those are all great stories. Rainey, I want to ask you again about one of the things we talked about was how much construction and how much design is going on now in Detroit. I think the last thing I said before you froze was, I used to live in Dallas, and they said if you toss a brick, a building would pop up. Is that what we have here? And is Detroit a place where we want to get Black architects to come? Or is this just like every place else where there's a lot of building going on?
No, I think there's a good deal of building going on. And I know when we flipped the switch on Friday, March the 13th to work from home, the first order of business was to call our current clients and see if they wanted to continue their project even during the pandemic. And all of them said yes. So I think people are looking beyond the pandemic and are planning to design and build projects. So I think we should be attracting more designers of color to the Detroit market. And hopefully we'll get to post-pandemic pretty quickly. But I'm still seeing that projects are continuing on. And if people aren't building it today, they're planning for it tomorrow. So I still think there's a market. We're working on the Motown expansion. We're working on the Hudson's Tower. We've got a project that just broke ground on Woodward right at Stimson in Midtown called Woodward West, which would be a mixed-use residential project. So there's still opportunities for building in Detroit. That the need is still there to continue to improve our urban condition here in Detroit.
I have to say too on that point, Rochelle, like something else that's happening that is helping to me, the Black architect, is there are now Black developers that are coming on play. So you mentioned George Namdi. He's actually one of my clients. He has a Osei Apartments going up, a 30-unit apartment building in the Grand River. So that was a project that started with my firm and now is being completed at Quinn Evans. And that programs like Capital Impact that are helping to push out cohorts of Black developers and pushing that finance money side of things. Those developers tend to want to seek out and they'll go out of their way to find out where the Black architects are and minority architects are, because I think that's part of their mission and the work that they're doing. So I think it's uplifting a couple of disciplines, because we work with contractors, developers, and as well as institutions, and everybody I think kind of needs to be on board to help keep this keep uplifting Black architects.
I also think that architects can wear more than one hat. Architects can act as a developer. I actually purchased the building that houses Hamilton Anderson in Paradise Valley, Harmony Park, and we're looking forward to improving this property and to go on and do other developments throughout Detroit.
Yeah, I love that idea. And that's one of the things that I think it was Karen mentioned, that she did other things. People can get other degrees. They can work in all types of things, be an interior designer, be a landscape architect, be a consultant. Everybody wears two hats these days, but I just want to make sure that that hat that says architect gets its due. So I want people to make sure to look in the chat and see the listing for African-American architects and see the information about raising money for the editing and everything that you need that Noir Design Party is doing. And I do want to talk to you about the documentary, because I think that what you have done, and I can't wait to see the whole thing. I so appreciate you giving us the abridged version, but I want to hear the stories about the Wright Museum. And I also want to talk a little bit more about, those folks that Rainey is nurturing and bringing up, because the more we mention people and how great they are, the more they become those folks who are cemented in history. If nobody had ever said anything about Mies van der Rohe, those buildings would just be sitting over there. But when you become celebrated, everybody says, this is amazing. And yes, they're designed well, and I like mid-century modern, but you know how it works. People go, oh yeah, that's great. Well, if we're doing great things, I want to make sure we do that too. So part of my job in this job is to be cheerleader, and I do that very well. So I'd like to get some closing comments from our three guests just about what should happen next, what people should be doing, and how we get to our kids. And Rainey, I'm going to save you for last. So Karen, why don't you go first?
Well, I appreciate you having us on today and recognizing that architecture is art, and the artists that create it. Noir Design Party, we have a lot of projects that we're working on. We're organizing them, but we are looking for volunteers to help us. So if anyone is interested, I know Vic has volunteered already and through the chat. We are looking to have a wikithon where we make sure that our Black architects have their profiles on Wikipedia, and any other way that you think you might be able to assist us. We would appreciate that. And Rochelle, thank you again for being our moderator for the Black Women's Architecture panel. We're still kicking ourselves that we did not record that because it was such a great discussion. So we're gonna have to do it again.
That just means we have to do it again.
Right, right.
Sandra?
Yeah, so you mentioned you mentioned movies, right? So Hidden Figures was like a big thing that got us set fire under us towards the architecture side. And another movie that has got me going now is A Night in Miami. So our next, we have another presentation that's coming up on February 17th. And we're gonna say it's like Night in Detroit in 1971 and how Noma Gap found it here in Detroit. Why, so who was in the room, and so we're gonna try to dig into that history and have that be a part of our next presentation. So definitely tune in for that. And the information for that is on Facebook. It's set up through the National Organization of Minority Architects Detroit chapter. So yeah, looking to continue the movie theme thing. So that's our next presentation.
I love that. Remember, that was Vic's idea, but I'm going to steal the screenplay. And Michelle was very clear that all the folks who tell the story should be Black. So we got to find a Black producer and a Black director.
Right.
And somebody has to
I'm
play.
ready. I think it is. It's something there.
Somebody has to play Rainey. So we have to start thinking about who that might be. And so, Rainey, before you close us out, I want to thank Michelle McKinney. She was talking about, Sandra, she's thanking you for fighting for the Detroit Sound Conservancy with Quinn Evans, and you're helping with the restoration of the Bluebird Inn. We got that great news about the Bluebird, and I'm helping with that as well. So every building we can save and every building that we can design, I want us to do it.
Oh yes, the story behind that project is amazing. Yes.
No, we're excited.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Rochelle.
Rainey?
Yeah, so thanks, Rochelle, for putting this together and having us all on. I think we have to continue to try to get the youth exposed to the field of architecture and all the related industries. And I'll take you up on the screenplay. I think back of watching a television sitcom called The Brady Bunch, and I think Mike was an architect. And then the made-for-movie called The Towering Inferno, where I think it was Steve McQueen was the cool architect. And the building that he designed, actually a high-rise, caught fire because the contractor used effective materials, but it was an instant hit. So I think there should be something that does appear in terms of a screenplay or a movie or a television sitcom or drama to talk about architecture. And there are lots of stories that I'm sure that Sandra and Karen and I can share that would make for some good material for such a show.
That sounds great to me. I want to thank everybody who was in here. We've got folks from the Virginia Park community. Rainey, people love your brick background, as do I. And I think somebody wanted to make, is that Vic who wanted to make it? Vic, you want to come on to say something yourself? Why don't you?
I did. Hello,
Okay.
Rochelle. So
Hi.
you and I have met on several occasions, but you might know me best through Ciartis Gardner.
Yes.
Yeah. So in regards to getting this movie together, there's only half a degree of separation from anyone in Detroit with anyone on the planet, because we're in all of the entertainment industry, all of the technology industries, as well as all of the medical industries. So this can happen. What is it? I want to say her name is Danielle Morisseau. She's with the Detroit Film Theater, and she's a MacArthur. Yeah, she's a MacArthur Genius Grant winner. She can assist with this. She's a CASTech graduate, so I know how to find her.
I actually do too. I'm working with her on a project too.
Right. So
you
Rochelle,
see, we're already on the
Karen.
movie. Look, I'm still on the architecture. We're already on the movie. So like, I will give you a call to talk about it, because we can get a whole group and do a table read about
Yes.
everything we're doing.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here because it speaks to how important this is. I want to thank the audience over on Facebook. I want to thank the folks who came over here in the chat. We're going to take all this information out of the chat and make sure everybody has it in case you didn't write it down. But in particular, the fundraiser that Karen and Sandra and Noir Design Party are doing to make sure that they get that done. But I also want to talk about the bigger documentary, beyond all of these films and television shows that show Black architects, because we do know that makes a difference. You know, you show somebody doing a job in a popular show and all of a sudden everybody's doing that.
That's
But
true.
the documentary is also important because I want people to know these real people. So thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And stay tuned tonight for our discussion about fashion with Tracy Reeves and Rosalind Karamoko, because there's a burgeoning fashion industry in town. And then tomorrow night, we have a poetry session, a beautiful spoken word session with Jessica Keir-Moore and a cadre of poets who are doing a tribute to the late Naomi Long Madgett, our Detroit Poet Laureate. And after that, there's one program about comedy, because that is also a cultural treasure for us here in Detroit. And we have Horace H.B. Sanders and Crystal P. and Rochelle Riley doing comedy sets. So mark your calendars, go to DetroitArtsAndCulture.com where you can get more information about everything that's happening and the updated schedule, and all of the programming will be there. But we are going to repeat everything as soon as we make sure that we cleaned it up and have the proper credits on it, so that you can see that on Channel 22 and also on DetroitArtsAndCulture.com. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Karen and Sandra and Rainey. And Rainey, we'll have to have a whole nother session with you just to talk about the work you're doing around town. But you guys
Sounds great.
and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.